doing everything by law is going to be the easiest way to enjoy being a landlord. What is the role of a landlord? The landlord is the owner of the property. They're the ones that actually buy if the building already is existing, or the land, and then they build, right? So they own the actual multifamily, single family, duplex, whatever it is. The landlord is the owner. So they're responsible for making sure that the payment of the debt is being paid, having the correct insurance on their property, having the things that the employees that they need to take care of that property. So maintenance, landscaping, pest control, all of that. And at the beginning, a landlord normally wears all the hats because they either can't afford a property management, or they want to learn the business and they're hands-on. For example, Bobby and I, when we first started, we were super hands-on. I took the role of everything except maintenance. But, I was the one making sure that we had insurance, the correct insurance. And that's very important too, is a lot of landlords that are new in property, investing in properties, they don't understand that insurance is very, very important, and they want to take the cheap route out, and they'll just buy minimum insurance. And then something happens, and then they're mad that the insurance doesn't cover it, right? So then they start, the insurance, the company is a piece of crap. It's not their fault. You picked that insurance. So a landlord's responsibility is to make sure that that property is insured properly, that it's maintained properly, and they want to make sure that their tenants are paying rent at the beginning again. So let's talk about the difference between a landlord and a property management or a property manager. And there's two ways of having property management. It's either a third party company where they manage with all the employees, anything that has to be done with a property, or you hire an individual property manager that's going to work for you as the owner, and they do all the legwork for you. So two different, third party or individual. So if you go with a third party management company as a landlord, you also have to be sure that you know what property management company you're going to bring in, because if you don't know what your goals, what your core value is for that property, that management company could come in and start renovating everything for you, where they think, well, we need to. A property management, remember, they make money on different things that they work on, depending on what contract you have with them. So if you have a management company that's coming in and they're making a percentage of any renovations that you're doing, guess what? They're going to want to renovate every unit. They're going to want to redo the roof, this, that. They're not going to want to fix anything. They're going to tell you that everything needs to be renovated, right? There's other property management that you have them on the less money they spend on any kind of repairs or maintenance on the building, and the more NOI they bring in, the more commission they make. So then you have a management company that a refrigerator is broken, and instead of getting a refrigerator for your tenants, they'll go in there with the maintenance guy and try to fix something up, and now the refrigerator's always broken. You have now a tenant that's always bitching or always complaining, that and then writing bad reviews on you. So those are the different things that you have to be. As a landlord, you have to understand how to manage a management company, right? So that's why I love to tell landlords, you have to know the management side of the business because it is the heartbeat of being an investor in real estate. Yes, so let's talk about when I first started in this business. Bobby and I went into this business going into class C's because that's all we can afford at the moment. We didn't have a lot of money and we needed to get in and put our foot in the investment field. So we started buying small garden apartments, C assets that were more about the Section 8 tenants, right? At the beginning, I didn't know this, and we did a lot of mistakes. We would allow anyone that had a voucher to come into our buildings. And then we started noticing that they would start bringing in a bunch of family members, living 20 people in one unit. The parking was a disaster, and then everybody was complaining. The unit would get really messed up. They would have parties, or they would sit outside of the buildings. They would make noise. So we started noticing, wait a minute, just because they have a Section 8 voucher and it's covering our rent, that doesn't mean that that's the right tenant for us. We had everybody else complaining. So we learned very quickly that even if they had a Section 8 voucher, we were going to still underwrite that tenant just like a normal tenant for a Class A, B, or C. So we would do background checks on them, make sure that they were never evicted from another property. So different things that we would have a criteria with a third party company that we would send it to get a background check and then it would bring us back everything. We didn't worry so much about credit because on a C class asset, really what we were worried about was what type of person we were bringing into our building, character, right? So no, unfortunately, we wouldn't allow no person that had a criminal record for either something that happened, within a year or two. No selling of drugs because we didn't want that. We also had a lot of that in our Section 8 that we had one unit actually blew up because a guy was cooking meth or making meth, had a meth lab in our unit. So, yes. So, all of that. So, we wouldn't care if they had, a misdemeanor on that they were carrying weed or they got caught with cocaine, those things. That's their problem. That wasn't our problem. But if you got caught selling, no way. Pedophile, no way. There were certain criterias that you mark, and that third party company would automatically decline it. So, we were okay. These were our criterias. No, sorry, you have a voucher 8, but for us, we don't allow certain things. And one of the things you have to know, if you don't allow it from one tenant, you can't allow it from no one else. So what you have to be very careful because housing laws, you can get in a lot of trouble. They could shut you down. You could get a fine and you could go to jail. So there's many things that can happen. So once you implement a rule for background checks, you got to go across the board to all your tenants in that one location. So in a Class C, Class B, or Class A, we still had our standards that we just were not going to accept. Yes, 100%. So right now in all of our units, we go 3 times the rent. So you have to make 3 times income of whatever you're going to be paying monthly. Because we do not want a tenant that's coming into our unit and being rent. All they can afford is rent. Then they can't eat, they can't pay their car, they can't get, So no, we don't like that. We want to make sure that the tenant that's in our unit is comfortable paying that rent and not just saying, now I have to sit in here and I can't even drive to work, right? So that goes across the board. It doesn't matter if it's an A, B, or C class. We're still at 3 times the rent. Yeah, so there's a lot of different housing laws. I mean, and then depending on the state that you're in. But I'm going to give you just some that I know just off the top of my head. I don't know them all. But like, for example, if we put the rent for this apartment to be $1,500 for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. We got to stay with that across the board of every tenant that walks into our property, we have to offer them the $1,500. We can't negotiate with you and then another person comes in after you and that we tell them, oh no, we can't negotiate. If we negotiated with you, now we need to negotiate with everyone. So we have to have that policy across the board. I had a tenant just call me. How he got my number, I don't know. He's in one of my properties and he was calling to please want to speak to the owner because we need to get a variance on our rent because we don't have a job right now and all we can afford is X. And they were kind of upset because the property manager said, listen, I'm so sorry. We are not allowed to do that because we have housing laws. And I tried to explain that to the tenant. Listen, I can't do it. Not because we don't want to. It's that if we do it for you, we need to do it. And in that property where he's at, it's a 350 unit property. I'm like, imagine me having to do this for everyone in the property. And if I do it to you, I know that you're going to say you don't do it, that you're not going to say anything to anybody, but you talk to this one, you talk to that one. And at the end of the day, guess what? The one that's going to get penalized, the one that's going to get in trouble is us as the owner because we negotiated with you and not the rest. Another one is also some type of like if you have a handicapped person, you have to have certain access to handicapped persons. Right now we're working on one of our buildings that has a double floor for the gym. And the previous owners weren't using the upstairs part of the gym. They had it completely closed off because they didn't want to have bring the access for a handicapped person to get in there. Well, when I found this out, I'm like, I'm gonna use this second floor. It's in a beautiful spot. I'll put access for a handicapped person to get up there. So again, if we're gonna use that upstairs for a person that is not handicapped, I have to have access for a handicap. So you have to have access for both. It's another one that's very big. What's another one? If we the 3 times income. If we do it for somebody, we have to do it for one. We have to do it for everyone. So there's certain different ones there's a lot of them. There's a book that you got to make sure as a landlord, if you don't have a third-party management company or a property manager that knows what they're doing, you better make sure that they get that housing law booklet and that they know it in and out because it's a real thing. And they'll come and secret shop you, meaning they'll send somebody over there acting like a prospect. And if you answer one of those questions wrong or you do something that you're not supposed to, right there and then you're going to get the fine, requested to go to court, the whole 9 yards. It's a serious thing. It's nothing to play around with. So a lot of people tell me, oh my God, I don't want to invest in real estate because I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to receive phone calls 24/7. I don't want to have the repairs that need to get done on the property. I don't know the laws. I don't want to collect rent. I don't want to, and I discourage everybody from listening to that noise out there because being a landlord is a great industry to be, a great career to be, right? Because you're your own boss, you're owning a piece of land or a property that increases in value on a constant basis. It's a matter of just doing things the right way and learning how to be anything, a technician, even a maintenance guy, an electrician, a plumber, a firefighter, I don't know, being a police, anything that you do, you've got to learn your job description, correct? I mean, so being a landlord is just a matter of learning what you're doing. So landlord, the number one that I always hear is, oh my God, I'm going to get calls 24/7. Well, first thing, don't give your numbers out to all your tenants. You always tell your tenants that you are the property manager, even if you're the landlord, right? And I'm going to tell you how they're not going to find out, how they won't find out that you're the owner. That's how you protect yourself, is by your LLC. Your LLC, and that's another video that you have to look at that I explained the whole entire thing, how to keep yourself from being know who is the owner in that LLC. There's a lot of protection on that. So I always tell everybody, don't give out your personal cell number to a tenant. You are the property manager. If you're a landlord that wants to wear all the hats, get a separate phone just for your properties. And that way, you know, when that phone calls come in, you know that you're the property manager and you're handling that in the business hours that are correct for it. Of course, if you get a call in the middle of the night that your property is either flooded or it's on fire, you better answer it. That's your property. You want to make sure that, but every little call, you don't need to answer it. You have a lot of tenants that are paying, you know, oh, the screw on the cabinet is coming apart. I don't like the way the wall paint is. There's a chip on the floor. Nonsense that just because they call you, you don't need to answer them right away. You have business hours to answer those non-emergency phone calls. So that's number one, how to protect yourself from getting calls 24/7. Another one is making sure when you rent out a unit that everything in that unit is functional, that it's the way that you would have it if you lived in it. I always treat all my properties that I want to make sure that I could live in it. And I'm not talking about luxury. I'm talking about the normal person, you know, a clean tub, a functional toilet, that your sinks are all working, that your doors are not falling apart, that the paint is, you know, not, that walls are not dirty, that they're painted, that their ceilings are not falling apart. Things that are normal, guys. If you keep your units in good condition, you will not have a tenant calling you every 5 minutes. But if you're renting out a unit that the toilet is falling apart, that there's a leak in the sink, that the cabinet in the kitchen is falling apart, that there's a hole in the wall, how is a tenant not going to call you? They're paying you for rent. Of course a tenant wants a livable unit. So make sure that, and a clean one when they move in, because I've seen landlords turn in units that they look disgusting. So I would call a landlord if a unit is dirty, if everything's falling apart. But you as a landlord has the responsibility and the moral responsibility more than anything that that unit is being turned over to a tenant in a proper condition, in a way that you will live in it, that it's good, everything is functional, and that it's in good condition. And you'll have zero calls. Maintaining your property as a landlord should be your number one priority, because if your property is falling apart, guess what? The valuation of your property is decreasing. So deferred maintenance is one of the most things that we've ever seen when we're buying C units, especially. But as a landlord, they're not understanding that you're losing money. You're letting the evaluation of your property continuously, year after year, just decrease and decrease and decrease because you don't want to maintain your property. So Bobby and I have a policy in our properties. We have a schedule of monthly, quarterly, yearly, that our management company or our team have to inspect, and just to maintain. Roof, we always check them, make sure you have no leaks. Windows, making sure that, the caulking around the window, no leakage is coming in, that nothing's broken. You also have your pest control that could eat up all the wood, if you have termites. Plumbing issue, a leak in your building could cause a huge problem. The electricity in your building, making sure that everything is up to code. You could have a fire, and then what? So all these little things, there's a list, and we have them, like I said, monthly, quarterly, and yearly, that we make sure that everything's intact. And that doesn't take a lot of money. That's just making sure that your maintenance is up to date. That's as easy as that. And now then you start calculating, okay, my roof has another 2 years, has another 5 years. Start saving for that capex. My windows, some of them need to be changed. They might have a leak here and there. They're already 20 years old. It's about time. Let's start reserving for that. Pest control. You need to make sure that you as a landlord is doing pest control around the outside of your building and even inside your units. We charge our tenants a monthly fee for that. But let's say that you're in a class C and you can't put it into, the rent. I would for sure put pest control once a month. Imagine that you start getting cockroaches, termites, and the building just gets infected. Now what? It's crazy because it's your responsibility. Don't count that the tenants need to do that. That is your building. You want to preserve the building's capacity to be able to reach longevity with you, right? So the more maintenance you put into the property, the longer that building's evaluation is going to continue to increase year by year with the rent increase that you're going to be able to do. Because if you maintain your building, your tenants are going to stay with you and you're going to be able to increase rent on a yearly basis. So why not maintain your properties? It's super important to do that. Yeah. I mean, but again, who's losing there? Because as a tenant, I will leave if I have that much, pest problems. And if the landlord doesn't want to take care of it, sometimes even if the tenant takes care of the pest control inside their unit, but the landlord's not doing the exterior part, the rats, all the ants, everything, they're still going to creep in. And the outside of your building is not a tenant's responsibility. That's the landlord's responsibility. What we do is that, obviously, if they don't pay their rent, we're giving them a 3-day notice and we're sending them to eviction. And if they don't pay up, the law will do it for us. We don't have to do anything. If they're paying and they're still being nags and they're wanting to complain about everything, we offer them cash for keys. And what that is that, hey, listen, we understand you're unhappy. We don't want an unhappy tenant. We'll give you back your deposit if you turn in your unit and go live somewhere else where I'm sure you want to live happy and not be living miserable, because we don't want anybody that is unhappy. We want you to be happy. This is your home. This is where you're going to come from work and feel that it's your oasis, right? We want you to feel nice and comfy, happy, saying nice things about the property and getting along with the tenants, because you're living in a community. So you want to have everybody that likes each other, that could be happy. Even if they don't like each other, they could be, cordial with each other, right? So you don't want an unhappy tenant. It's almost like, cancer. It spreads like wildfire, right? So we don't want that. We always tell an unhappy tenant, we'll give you your deposit back. Please go find somewhere that you could be happy at. We make sure that any state that we are investing in with multifamily, we're looking at the landlord laws and tenant laws. Not because we want to be unfair. We want it to be fair. So California, New York, Washington, Jersey, there's so many places that they allow a tenant to live there for free for years. Meanwhile, the landlord still has to pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the employees, and they don't give the landlord not even a break. Even if that tenant is being unfair to the landlord, they don't care. It's the tenant is the one that's going to be the one that comes out winning. And it's not even about, do I want it to be only a landlord law? No, I just want it to be equal. If they don't pay, they need to respect us. And if we're not being respectful, keeping the property maintained, that they get the same rights, right? So just 50-50. It's the way I look at it. I don't mind that we need to keep the property right, that we need to, if we say we're going to have amenities in the property, that the amenities are functional and that they're able to use it because they're paying for those amenities. But the same with a tenant. If you're not paying or being disrespectful or being destroying the property, why should I have you here and that the law's respecting you and not respecting me? Number one is learn how to manage a property. Very, very important. It is the heartbeat of investing. You have to know because that's your business. So I tell every landlord, don't look at this as being an investor, that it's not a business. This is a business that needs to produce money in order for you to survive. So learning when to collect your rents. Don't ever let a tenant go past 3 days past due their rent. Because if you allow that, now you're going to go months after months after months not collecting, and you, as a landlord, still have to pay your debt. You still have to pay your employees. You have to pay your taxes, and you have to pay your insurance, and you have to pay that maintenance. I mean, you still have bills. So management will teach you that collecting rent on time and not allowing a tenant to go past those 3 day period that by law in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, a bunch of the properties that we invest in have. They're called a 3 day notice. And after that, and of course, you need to get an attorney for this. There's attorneys that specializes in tenant evictions. I do not suggest anybody doing on their own. You have to hire, once you become a landlord and you want to be your own management company, you have to have an eviction attorney on your team. It's a must. Doing everything by law is going to be the easiest way to enjoy being a landlord. Don't ever become friends with your tenants. As much as you want to, oh, but I like to have, I want to be the property manager and I want to become friends with everybody. I love being social. That's great. But when that tenant has an issue or just knows that they could take advantage of you, trust me, they will. So keeping it professional. You're my tenant. I'm the property manager. And, we could be friendly. Of course we could be friendly. But you got to stand. You're the property manager. You're the tenant. That's our relationship. Making sure that the property is in good condition. Don't ever turn in a property with everything we just explained with. No leaks, everything falling apart. Because you're going to get a phone call. With all due respect, they have the rights to. They're paying you for that unit. And you've got to get that unit perfect. So if you and that doesn't mean that you need to put top of the line everything. No, it's just functional. Clean and functional. That's what you got to worry about a unit. So if you do those things, being a landlord becomes so easy. And you're not going to have all those headaches, and you don't need to be called a slumlord. Slumlord, I'm sorry. A slumlord. You don't have to be called that. It's awful. I would hate to have that reputation. And as a landlord, I take pride in making sure that my properties are in as good as condition as I could put them, have them at, with the price point that property deserves, right? So if you're at an A, you better have top of the line. If you're in a B, you have the middle, having the unit in the price range that they're paying. And a C, just because it's a C property doesn't mean that it needs to be all broken and not working and functional. It needs to be clean and functional. I mean, resources, we have a mastermind inner circle that we talk about everything, how to invest in real estate, and it's real talk. It's not classroom study. It is actual what really you need to do. It's not, let me study a book and the book is going to tell me. No, we do exactly what we've done. We're talking about that on biweekly calls, Zoom calls. We're giving you exactly what you need. So if you ever, really want to become a landlord and you want to get step by step, you need to join our inner circle, because that's exactly what we do, is teach them everything they need to know in order to become a good landlord. I hope that this video brought you value. If you have any further questions, sign up for my live Q&A, which the link is below, and I'll be able to answer any questions. Remember, like, subscribe, and comment.